This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, مساء, has left Ankara for Algiers after concluding an official visit to the sister Republic of Turkey as part of efforts to strengthen brotherly ties and cooperation between the two countries. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune praised the strong level of cooperation between Algeria and Turkey, saying bilateral relations are witnessing growing momentum and highlighting the deep historical ties and shared cultural heritage linking the two countries. Meanwhile, the President of the Republic has addressed a message on the occasion of the National Memory Day marking the 81st anniversary of the May 8, 1945 massacres committed by the then French colonial army. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, in our news, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has left Ankara for Algiers after concluding an official visit to the sister Republic of Turkey as part of efforts to strengthen brotherly ties and cooperation between the two countries. During the visit, President Tebboune co-chaired alongside his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan the first session of the Algerian-Turkish High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council, which culminated in the signing by the two men of the declaration of the first session of the bilateral council. Abdelmadjid Tebboune and Recep Tayyip Erdogan also co-chaired the signing ceremony of several bilateral cooperation agreements covering such fields as industry, trade, agriculture, media, postal services and transport, among others. In a joint press statement with his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune praised the strong level of cooperation between Algeria and Turkey, saying bilateral relations are witnessing growing momentum, highlighting the deep historical ties and shared cultural heritage linking the two countries, and noted that relations are progressing positively and reaching a highly satisfactory level. President Tebboune stressed that his official visit aims to strengthen cooperation by diversifying economic ties and expanding partnership opportunities in renewable energy, agriculture, industry and mining, while also boosting cultural and humanitarian cooperation. He also welcomed the rich and fruitful discussions which culminated in the signing of several important agreements, highlighting the reactivation of the Business Forum for its key role in trade and investment exchanges between the two countries. President Tebboune further praised the launch of negotiations on a preferential trade agreement covering selected goods, saying it could help raise bilateral trade and investment to $10 billion by 2030. Let's listen to the President of the Republic.
قد سعدت مع أخي فخامة الرئيس رجب طيب أردوغان خلال مباحثاتنا باستعراض محطات هامة تتعلق بواقع علاقات بلدينا، وهي علاقات ذات عمق تاريخي وترتكز على إرث ثقافي مشترك، وعلاقات نشهد لها ديناميكية متزايدة تدعونا إلى الارتياح وتثمين الخطوات التي قطعناها للوصول إلى هذا المستوى في ظرف قصير، ظرف لا يتجاوز 5 سنوات، والذي نسعى عبر زيارتنا هاته إلى تعزيزه بتنويع التعاون الاقتصادي وتوسيع مجالات الشراكة للقطاعات الطاقة المتجددة، الزراعة، الصناعة، المناجم، وبدعم التعاون الثنائي في المجالات الثقافية والإنسانية وتثمين تراثنا التاريخي والحضاري المشترك.
President Abdelmadjid Tebboune welcomed the outcome of the talks with Recep Tayyip Erdogan, which resulted in the signing of several cooperation agreements. He praised the reactivation of the Algerian-Turkish Business Forum and the launch of negotiations on a preferential trade agreement aimed at increasing bilateral trade and investment to $10 billion, in line with the target set by the two countries in 2021.
ويسرني أن أعبر عن ارتياحي لنتائج هذه المحادثات الثرية والمثمرة التي توجت بالتوقيع على عدد هام من الاتفاقيات، وإني أشيد بإعادة تفعيل منتدى رجال الأعمال وبدوره المحوري في التبادل التجاري وحركة الاستثمار بين المتعاملين الاقتصاديين في البلدين. ولا يفوتني أن أثمن كذلك البدء في المفاوضات على الاتفاقية التفضيلية للتجارة، ونحن متفقين في هذا الشأن على قائمة محددة من السلع، والتي من شأنها المساهمة في الارتقاء بحجم المبادلات التجارية والاستثمارات إلى حدود 10 ملايير دولار مثل ما قررناه في 2021.
In this same context, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune highlighted that his talks with the Turkish president included discussions on developments in the Gulf and Middle East, as well as ways and means to resolve crises and strengthen security, while condemning what he described as the Israeli violations of international and humanitarian law and the attacks on Lebanon, stressing the international community responsibility to put an end to them and guarantee the rights of the Palestinian people, foremost among them their right to establish their independent state.
وفي مباحثاتنا تبادلنا بطبيعة الحال الرؤى حول ملفات الساعة ذات الاهتمام المشترك، حيث تطرقنا إلى التطورات في منطقة الخليج والشرق الأوسط وسبل حلحلة الأزمات واستباب الأمن، وعربنا عن تنديدنا بانتهاكات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي للقانون الدولي وقانون الدولي الإنساني باعتدائه السافر على لبنان الشقيق وبوحشية ممارسة في قطاع غزة. وقد أكدنا بهذا الخصوص على مسؤولية المجتمع الدولي في وضع حد لهذه الانتهاكات وتكثيف جهود بناء السلام في المنطقة بما فيها الحل العادل والدائم الذي يضمن الحقوق المشروعة للشعب الفلسطيني وعلى رأسها حقه في إقامة دولته المستقلة.
The Algerian head of state also discussed with his Turkish counterpart the situation in Libya, the Sahel region, and the Western Sahara issue, stressing that Algeria and Turkey are committed to peaceful solutions and dialogue for resolving conflicts.
وعبرنا كذلك عن استنكارنا لقرار الاحتلال الإسرائيلي بانتهاك سيادة وسلامة أراضي جمهورية الصومال الفيدرالية، وهو خرق صارخ لميثاق الأمم المتحدة وتهديد للأمن والاستقرار في منطقة القرن الإفريقي.
And that was the statement of President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, who said that discussed with his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan the situation in Somalia and condemned what they described as Israel's violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Federal Republic of Somalia, saying it is a blatant violation of the UN Charter and a threat to peace, security and stability in the Horn of Africa. And the head of state also discussed with his Turkish counterpart the situation in Libya, the Sahel region and Western Sahara issue.
كما اغتنمنا هذه الفرصة الثمينة للتطرق إلى الأوضاع في ليبيا ومنطقة الساحل وإلى قضية الصحراء الغربية، وكانت التحاليل الخاصة بهذه الملفات صريحة ومثمرة ومتطابقة، وأبرزت حرص الجزائر وتركيا على الالتزام بحلول سلمية في تسوية النزاعات والالتزام بالشرعية الدولية.
For his part, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan stressed that Turkey is determined to strengthen cooperation with Algeria in key strategic sectors including energy, mining, transport and agriculture. During his joint press conference with President Tebboune, Erdogan said both countries are working to raise bilateral trade to $10 billion, highlighting that more than 1,600 Turkish companies operate in Algeria in various sectors.
We are determined to develop our cooperation with Algeria, which is one of our largest trade partners on the African continent in many strategic sectors, foremost among them energy, mining, transport and agriculture. We have intensified our efforts in line with our goal of reaching a trade volume of $10 billion, a target we set in 2023. More than 1,600 Turkish companies in Algeria implementing significant projects and investments in the fields of industry, mining, agriculture, construction, pharmaceuticals and infrastructure, with investments amounting to $8 billion. The war that began in our region as a result of Israeli provocations and schemes continues to negatively affect, in particular, the energy markets. We, in Turkey, have established and developed with Algeria over many years a cooperation in the field of energy characterized by reliability, stability and sustainability.
President Erdogan expressed Turkey's appreciation for Algeria's support for the Palestinian cause during its recent tenure as a member of the UN Security Council, adding that Algeria and Turkey share similar views on issues in Africa and the broader region, reiterating Turkey's support for a two-state solution in Palestine.
I was pleased to see a convergence of views between us and Algeria regarding the fundamental issues concerning the African continent and our region. We are among the strongest advocates of the two-state solution vision in Palestine. As you know, the establishment of the State of Palestine was declared in Algeria on November 15, 1988. We highly appreciated the support provided by Algeria to the Palestinian cause during its membership in the United Nations Security Council over the past 2 years.
Meanwhile, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdulmajid Tebboune, was awarded in Ankara the Order of the State by his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan, which is Turkey's highest civilian distinction granted to heads of state and royal families in recognition of efforts to strengthen bilateral ties with Turkey. In return, President Tebboune awarded President Erdogan the Algerian Order of National Merit at the rank of Athir in recognition of his efforts to reinforce and deepen relations and partnership between the two countries in various fields. The ceremony took place during the Algerian president's official visit to Turkey, accompanied by a high-level ministerial delegation. President Abdulmajid Tebboune also laid a wreath at the mausoleum of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk in Ankara as part of his working visit to sisterly Turkey, and received afterwards at his residence in Ankara representatives of the Algerian Turkish steel company Tosyali and the Algerian Turkish textile company Tayal. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdulmajid Tebboune, has addressed a message on the occasion of the National Day of Memory, marking the 81st anniversary of the May 8, 1945 massacres committed by the then French colonial army. President Abdulmajid Tebboune marked Algeria's National Day of Memory by commemorating the May 8, 1945 massacres, describing them as acts of genocide committed by French colonial forces against Algerians demanding freedom. He stated that around 45,000 Algerians were killed in Sétif, Guelma and Kharrata, highlighting that the events helped spark Algeria's independence revolution. President Tebboune criticized attempts to justify colonialism and stressed the importance of preserving historical memory. The president also announced the 2 new initiatives, national conferences on memory and history, and a draft law on national memory to honor the victims and protect Algerians' history or historical legacy. On the occasion of Algeria's National Day of Memory, marking the 81st anniversary of the May 8, 1945 massacres, President Abdulmajid Tebboune has announced new initiatives aimed at preserving the country's historical memory and honoring the victims of colonial repression. Mariam Barshi has more details.
In a message to the nation, the President of the Republic instructed the Ministry of War Veterans and Rights Holders to organize national conferences on memory and history and prepare a draft law on national memory. He said the initiatives are intended to honor the martyrs of the May 8, 1945 massacres and all Algerians who sacrificed their lives for the country's independence. President Tebboune described the massacres as one of the darkest crimes of colonialism. More than 45,000 Algerians were killed by French colonial forces in Sétif, Guelma and Kharrata and other regions during peaceful demonstrations demanding freedom. The events are considered a major turning point that paved the way for Algeria's War of Independence. Commemorative ceremonies were held in Sétif under the supervision of Minister of War Veterans and Rights Holders Abdelmalek Tashrif, who stressed the importance of preserving national memory and passing it on to the younger generations as a source of unity and development.
And the Secretary of State to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in charge of the national community abroad, Sofian Shaib, has participated in New York in the proceedings of the Global Forum on Migration Review, where he presented Algeria's vision based on consolidating a development and humanitarian approach to addressing migration and the movement of people in light of current international challenges and transformations. A ministry statement indicated that in his address on the occasion, Mr. Shaib affirmed that in accordance with the vision of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algeria places comprehensive development and respect for human dignity at the heart of its national strategy, stemming from a firm conviction that a sustainable approach to the phenomenon of migration requires addressing its root causes through supporting economic and social stability and enhancing developmental opportunities. The Secretary of State also emphasized that Algeria adopts a comprehensive and balanced approach in dealing with migration issues based on reconciling humanitarian, developmental, and security requirements within the framework of respect for the sovereignty of states and the provisions of international laws. Finally, Mr. Shaib stressed that migration issues remain a collective international responsibility that requires strengthening solidarity and multilateral international cooperation in order to ensure the realization of sustainable development goals and guarantee dignified and humane treatment for migrants in accordance with the values of justice and human solidarity that should frame joint international action in this field. And with this last piece of news, we come to the end of this news bulletin for today. Time now for weekly programs, starting with a program by my colleague Mas'ud Sharfi. It will be followed by another program on culture, which will be presented by my colleague Jamal Salmani. As far as I'm concerned, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of a news bulletin. Until then, stay tuned and bye-bye for now.
Welcome to Radio Algeria International. Today, Algeria marks the 81st anniversary of one of the most tragic, defining, and painful chapters in its modern history, the massacres of May 8, 1945. While much of the world celebrated the end of the Second World War and the defeat of Nazism, in the towns of Sétif, Galma and Kharrata, tens of thousands of Algerians were subjected to brutal repression and mass killings by French colonial forces. 81 years later, this date remains deeply engraved in the national memory, not only as a moment of mourning, but as a turning point that reshaped Algeria's struggle for independence. In 1945, as World War II drew to a close, Algerians, many of whom had fought bravely in Europe alongside the Allies under the French flag, with the hope that victory would bring justice, equality, and political rights. However, these aspirations clashed with the reality of a colonial system that had deprived Algerians of their fundamental rights for more than 130 years. On May 8, 1945, thousands of Algerians took part in the peaceful demonstrations in Sétif, Galma and Kharrata, calling for freedom, the release of nationalist leaders, and the right to self-determination. These marches reflected ideals that echoed the very principles the Allies had championed in the war. Marchers carried banners demanding freedom and Algerian flags symbolizing national identity and dignity. But what began as a hopeful, non-violent protest descended into unimaginable horror. After clashes broke out, the response from French colonial authorities was brutal, merciless, and disproportionate. Over the days and weeks that followed, French military forces, armed settlers, and militias launched a campaign of ruthless repression across Sétif, Galma, Kharrata, and surrounding regions. Villages were bombed from the air, entire communities were razed, and thousands were hunted down, imprisoned, tortured, and executed without trial. More than 45,000 Algerians lost their lives in a systematic campaign of massacre and terror, a crime against humanity. For Algerians, May 8, 1945 became an unmistakable sign that colonial oppression would never relent through peaceful means alone. The scale of the carnage, the depth of the injustice, and the sheer brutality of the repression shattered any remaining hope for reform under colonial rule, leaving a profound mark on the national consciousness. This tragedy ignited a collective determination that would, in less than a decade later, culminate in the launch of the glorious War of Independence of November 1st, 1954, a decisive step toward reclaiming sovereignty and dignity. Today, May 8th is observed in Algeria as the National Day of Memory. Across the country, official ceremonies are organized to honor the victims of these massacres, with tributes paid to the martyrs in Sétif, Guelma, Kharrata, and other affected regions. State institutions continue to underline the importance of preserving national memory, safeguarding historical truth, and transmitting it to future generations as a fundamental pillar of national identity, sovereignty, and collective remembrance. The events of May 8, 1945 remain central to ongoing discussions on historical memory between Algeria and France. Algeria continues to call for a full and official recognition of the crimes committed during the colonial period, emphasizing the need for a clear acknowledgement of historical truth and responsibility. In recent years, exchanges between the two countries have included statements of acknowledgement and symbolic gestures related to colonial memory, as well as continued work by historical commissions. However, Algeria maintains that these steps remain insufficient and that the question of full recognition and historical accountability is still unresolved. As Algeria commemorates this solemn anniversary today, May 8th stand as both a day of mourning and a lasting testament to the resilience of a nation. It is a moment to remember the thousands of innocent men, women, and children who lost their lives, and to honor the memory of those whose sacrifice paved the way for Algeria's independence. Remembering history is not only an act of commemoration, it is a commitment to preserving truth and upholding the values of justice, dignity, and national memory. You have been listening to Radio Algeria International, where memory endures and history speaks.
The museums of the world are the window into the history and creativity of a particular country. It is here where visitors are able to explore the past generation and the development of the country and marvel at the historic relics and artifacts that stand as a reminder to these ancient times. Algeria, the National Museum of Antiquities in Algiers is one of the most fascinating and comprehensive museums in the country. It is where the past meets the present and where Algeria comes to life. What makes the National Museum of Antiquities so unique is the fact that it does not only showcase pieces and history of Algiers, but has a wonderful collection that has been sourced from towns and cities across the country. Having displays from around Algeria gives visitors a comprehensive look at the country. One location making the National Museum of Antiquities a very popular attraction and educational tool. Some of the rare artifacts that visitors can look forward to viewing are the totemic warriors from the Libyan period, ivory carvings, and a breathtaking coin collection. The The sculptures that are located throughout the museum are magnificent and include the 3rd century child with an eagle, a sculpture from Shashel, and wonderful bronzes. The museum is also home to an extensive art collection, ancient mosaics, and dozens of priceless manuscripts. The National Museum of Antiquities has an exclusive collection of exhibits and offers an extraordinary opportunity to explore the cultures, traditions, and age-old beauty of this fascinating country. When in Algiers, visitors are recommended to add the museum to their list of activities, as they will not be disappointed at the wonders that are contained within the walls of the National Museum of Antiquities. From the capital Algiers to the western city of Tlemcen, the town of Tlemcen is noted for its flourishing vineyards and olive plantations, as well as its carpet, textile, and leather handicrafts. With its centuries of fascinating history and rich culture, a blend of Berber, Arab, French, and Andalusian, Tlemcen is